Transport Minister Daryl Vaz says normal operations are expected today at the state-owned Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC. In a series of posts on X on Thursday night, Minister Vaz sought to allay fears that commuters will be inconvenienced amid an ongoing industrial dispute between the JUTC leadership and workers represented by the University and Allied Workers Union, UAWU. JUTC experienced service disruptions on Thursday with lengthy delays on some routes. This as drivers were among those workers who stayed off the job in protest at the planned increase in health insurance premiums charged by Canopy Insurance Company. Minister Vaz says he has been assured that the JUTC will remain operating with normalcy while negotiations with the union continue. He says a meeting involving all parties is set to be mediated by senior officials at the Labour Ministry starting at 11 a.m. Repeal it. That's the word from former chairman of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, Professor Errol Miller, regarding the legislative change which facilitated the subsuming of the office of the political ombudsman into the ECJ. Professor Miller was a guest on Nationwide at 5 on Thursday.
I hope that good sense will prevail, that both the government and the opposition in Parliament, by this I mean House and Senate, would go back and make the 2024 local government election be the only election contested with this amendment, and also that in the process of doing that, restore the convention. In other words, I say, I hope good sense prevail and together they repeal this amendment and secondly, restore the convention. Because if the breaking of the convention is kept as precedent and you begin to apply that to electoral boundaries where the party in power sets the boundaries that suits it, we go back to the disgraceful past.
Professor Miller was the first chairman when the ECJ was formed in 2006. He says the amendment drags the ECJ commissioners into direct involvement with partisan politics.
The matter is not only the political ombudsman, but what people are not saying is the manner in which this Electoral Commission Interim Act of 2006 was amended. It was amended by breaking the convention. That was my principal concern.
And just to be clear for the listeners, what convention are you speaking to, Prof?
Here's the convention. Since 1979, between the party holding the majority in the parliament and the party holding the minority, that the party holding the majority in Parliament would never pass a law or set constituency boundaries by using its majority. It would seek to also have the minority involved in it. That's the convention.
Meanwhile, Professor Miller says he's amazed that the legislation that resulted in the office of the political ombudsman being subsumed by the ECJ was allowed to pass. He was responding to a question posed by Ricardo Brooks on Nationwide at 5.
Initially, when this matter came up, the opposition actually didn't raise objection. They said they went away, thought about it, and then came back.
They didn't take the principal reason that they should be objecting, which is that the convention was being broken. I am amazed that this has gone almost silently. I couldn't keep silent. I probably wouldn't have said anything if it was just legislation being passed, that bad legislation. But to me, the unconscionable matter was that the principal reason that we have made the progress we have made to date over the period 1997 to the current time, that convention is broken and the public not told that that was happening. And I am convinced that people knew that that was happening.
Professor Errol Miller, former chairman of the ECJ. King's Counsel Tom Tavaris Fenon says he would recommend legal action against the Financial Investigations Division FID and the Financial Services Commission FSC over their handling of the Alliance Investment Management Limited matter AIML. On Thursday, Chief Parish Court Judge Chester Crooks dismissed all 17 criminal charges against AIML and their former owners, brothers Robert and Peter Chin, who were accused of breaching the Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA.
We certainly would advise that they take legal action against the relevant agencies and entities that caused this course of action that led to the inevitable demise of the company and the loss of income. As far as the evidence is concerned, there is an aspect of it that we are going to be reporting to the Director of Public Prosecutions because we believe that there has been some attempt to pervert the course of justice in relation to some of the statements or a particular statement.
Tavaris Fenon says the actions of the FID and FSC have brought their regulatory operations into disrepute.
It has particular repercussions for the FID and the FSC because you bring the whole of those organizations into disrepute. And I would imagine that the supervising agency, being the Ministry of Finance, would be interested at looking at it and seeing how it happened and what remedial steps should be taken to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
King's Counsel Tom Tavaris Fenon speaking during Nationwide at 5 on Thursday. The leadership of Jamaica College has made fresh allegations against the use of funds under the tenure of former Old Boys Association President Major Basil Jarrett. The current president of the association, Lance Hilton, along with JC Trust Chairman Derek Jones and acting JC Principal Wayne Robinson, sued Major Jarrett in 2022 over monies raised from the sale of uniforms, suggesting impropriety on Jarrett's part. The Supreme Court dismissed the claim in March. On Thursday, the JC Old Boys and members of the school community staged a demonstration outside the Old Hope Road institution demanding the resignation of the Hilton-led board. But Hilton maintains that Major Jarrett must explain what happened to an additional $20 million.
They've presented a set of accounts. The treasurer has presented at an old boy meeting. One of the reasons why we wanted it formally presented to the school is because we want him to know that he's accountable to the school. That is the issue. They presented this at an old boy meeting. So I saw it. On it, 2 pages shows $20 million of funds that they've allocated to admin fees, they've allocated to commissions, and allocated to salaries. The offices here, they don't pay rent, they don't pay light bill, they don't pay water, they don't pay security. What are these admin fees that come to over $20 million in addition to commissions and salaries? There's one paid employer, and that paid employer is paid $100,000. We pay 50 of that. What are these $20 million in fees money that they've collected on behalf of the school that they've not handed over to the school?
In his defense, Major Jarrett restated claims documented in court, among them the tabling of an annual report to the board outlining the sums raised and expended. Hilton and Robinson also repeated claims that at the heart of their contention, the Old Boys Association has not formally submitted the audited financial accounts to the body.
They have said, and this is in Major Jarrett's affidavit, that they are independent and autonomous of the school, meaning that they can collect money, which they've done, on behalf of the school, and they decide what they do with that money.
Monies that donors are giving to the school that pass through them. Money
don't come to the school.
And they've said it's theirs.
That's acting principal of Jamaica College Wayne Robinson, and before him Lance Hilton, chairman of the Old Boys Association. Meanwhile, Mr. Hilton is refuting claims that there's a rift within the leadership at the Old Boys institution.
We saw headlines that said the school is in turmoil, everything is falling apart. We totally disagree. It's all nonsense, to be quite blunt and quite frank. The school is in great shape, and so if you ask the Old Boys Association, the president is putting out a statement saying that there is no rift between the Old Boys and the school. The board is active and functioning. The school is managing its 1,700 boys. We are excelling and improving in all areas. The parents are happy. The PTA is putting out, has also said that they know of no rift.
That's Lance Hilton, president of the JC Old Boys Association. The St. James Police are reporting that 2 rifles were seized and a wanted man captured following a joint police-military operation in Mount Salem on Thursday. According to the police, the rifles were found along with 4 magazines. The Caribbean Search Center and members of the Jamaica Defense Force were also part of the operation in Catton Lane in the community. The police say the magazines recovered included three that are compatible with the rifles and one designed for a pistol. A wanted man, Andina Burnett, was arrested during the operation. Burnett has been wanted by the police since last year for possession of a prohibited weapon and unauthorized possession of ammunition. The JCF is urging anyone with information that can assist in their efforts to fight crime to call Crime Stop at 311, the police emergency line at 119, the NIB tip line at 811, or the nearest police station. South St. Catherine Member of Parliament Fitz Jackson wants the leadership of the Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF to appear before Parliament's Economy and Production Committee to address concerns raised over financial losses suffered due to bank fraud.
When there are losses, right, through theft, fraud, or what have you, that's a criminal activity. So we can't address that element of it without involving the JCF. Because my information is that when these losses are incurred by customers, the bank send them to the police to report it. And the police, which is a law enforcement entity in the country, JCF, MOCA, etc., they are the ones that have to deal with it. So if this committee is to have or to get a full grasp of the issue and all other relating elements to it, we cannot have deliberations without having the JCF giving us their perspective and their experience. Otherwise, whatever conclusion we'll come to will be devoid of that knowledge and information that resides nowhere else.
Parliament's EPC is set to meet on May 1 to address several issues, including the banking issues faced by customers. This includes, Mr. Jackson says millions of dollars have been lost by customers due to fraudulent schemes. He acknowledged and welcomed the BOJ's new service standards regarding the functioning of automated banking machines, ABM, but he believes there are still questions to be answered by the central bank regarding the new arrangements. Chairman of the Economy and Production Committee, Dwight Sibley, agrees.
I too recognized that they have issued standards with regards to ATM, and there have been still a number of questions, notwithstanding that they have issued standards. And so we look forward to having the governor and his team here to inform the Jamaican people. And so I want us to continue in this bipartisan position and for nobody to paint it any other way, because it is not so. It is not so.
Dwight Sibley, Chairman of Parliament's Economy and Production Committee. The sentencing hearing for the man convicted of the 2017 murder of 15-year-old schoolgirl Shanika Gray began in the St. James Circuit Court on Thursday. Defense attorney Chumo Paris opened the proceedings, arguing that the death penalty should not apply to his client. We have more in this report. Chumo Paris contended in his submission to High Court Justice Bertram Morrison that the death penalty should only apply if the court finds that Gregory Roberts is incapable of reform. Using several case files, Paris submitted that murder is always a heinous crime, but it is clear that the death sentence must be reserved for exceptional categories of cases within the more serious cases of offense. He told the court that the Crown, in its submission, had stated that sentencing should start at 50 years. Paris argued that what the Crown is saying is that as an alternative to the death penalty, this man must serve that, pointing to Roberts' co-accused Mario Morrison, who pleaded guilty to the murder back in September 2022. Paris suggested that absolute fairness was lacking in the case. Morrison entered into a plea deal with the state and was sentenced to life in prison a month later. Paris stated that it's interesting that the former co-accused then became the Crown's main witness after admitting to having sexual intercourse with a minor and was found with her phone, but was never indicted for any of those. He further urged the court to reject the Crown's argument that Roberts is incapable of reform until he serves 50 years. Referencing a former case ruling, Paris said, quote, "I submit, my lord, that the particular range in dealing with this particular matter, I think it is safe to say, is within 15 years to life, but certainly nearer to 20 and upwards in considering a starting point." End quote. He continued, quote, "I am submitting that life imprisonment or 30 years would not be an appropriate starting point in this case." End quote. Meanwhile, a victim impact report from Shanika's family was also read at Roberts' sentencing hearing. In the report read by the clerk of the court, Shanika's aunt, Nikita Gray, urged the court to severely punish him for killing her niece. She said, quote, "I never wished death on anyone until I met Gregory. He makes me sick to my stomach. You have shown no remorse for slaughtering my niece like an animal. Gregory Roberts needs more than just a slap on the wrist. He should not be able to commit crimes like this and to get away with it. Today, Your Honor, I ask for no mercy when you make your decision in sentencing him. He deserves life in prison with no consideration for parole." End quote. The aunt said the death of Shanika, who was the first child of her brother, has caused a deep depression for family members. Shanika's aunt added that she herself has since developed hypertension. The victim impact report further quotes Gray saying, quote, "Because of your crime, my other niece is now afraid to traverse the streets of Montego Bay. She's even afraid to attire herself like a girl because she does not want to be a target for someone like him." End quote. A social inquiry report done in St. James and St. Thomas shows that Roberts maintains his innocence and showed no remorse for the crime for which he was convicted in November last year. Shanika was a grade 10 student at the time of her death in 2017. She was found 3 days after she had been reported missing. The sentencing hearing will continue on Friday morning. George Davis for Nationwide News. All right, the Electoral Office of Jamaica EOJ is reminding candidates who contested the February 26 local government elections that they are to file a return of election expenses by Monday, April 8. In a statement on Thursday, the EOJ says under paragraph 53 of the 8th schedule of the Representation of the People Act, candidates must submit an election return to the returning officer for the electoral division within 6 weeks after the date of the election. The EOJ says the requisite form may be collected at the office of the returning officer in each constituency, Mondays to Thursdays between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., and on Fridays from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. It's also reminding candidates that under Section 101 of the Representation of the People Act, any candidate who fails to make a return or makes a false declaration in their return commits an offense. If convicted, they are liable to a fine of a maximum $20,000 or a minimum of $20,000 or a maximum of $80,000. They can also face imprisonment for a term not less than 3 years. In addition to the fine or imprisonment, the court may order that the candidate or agent be disqualified from holding any post of election officer for a period of not less than 7 years from the date of the conviction. Overseas news now. Israel says it's taking steps to increase the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, including reopening a key border crossing into the northern part of the area. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's announcement on Friday came hours after President Joe Biden told him that future U.S. support for the war in Gaza depends on Israel taking more action to protect civilians and aid workers. The announcement did not elaborate on quantities or types of items to be let in. Still, despite their differences, the Biden administration has continued to provide Israel crucial military aid and diplomatic support for its 6-month war against Hamas. Israel faces growing international isolation after its forces killed 7 aid workers helping deliver food in Gaza. The Palestinian death toll has passed 33,000, with another 76,000 people wounded.